Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, we are over the midway point of the NBA Finals. It is 2 games apiece. The Boston Celtics blew a tremendous opportunity to go up 3-1 on their home court. Instead, they continue to frustrate me and do things the absolute hardest way possible. They follow the Warriors in that game 107-97. I have a lot of complaints about maybe more frustrations about the Celtics, Sap, but let's toss to you first. What are your thoughts on what happened in that game?
Well, they had a 4-point lead with 5:18 left and looked to be in good shape to close this thing out and get up 3-1. But it's been a problem all year. Even when they were the best team in the NBA the second half of the season, they had trouble in close games. Now, this ended up being a 10-point Warriors victory, but for all intents and purposes, it was a close game. It was a 5-point game with less than a minute left, and then Steph Curry starts hitting his free throws, and it turns out to be a 10-point victory by the Warriors. But with 5:18 left, the Celtics are up 4. Golden State goes on a 17-3 run to finish this thing off. Steph Curry hit a 3 in there, a floater in there. Klay Thompson hit a big 3. They got a basket from Kevon Looney. Draymond Green, who was benched for a period of time and was being subbed in and out for offense and defense, had a good fourth quarter where he had 5 rebounds and 3 assists. And the Warriors showed you why they are a championship caliber team. And the Celtics kind of wilted in this situation. And in close games this year, they have struggled, and they struggled again in game 4, mostly on the offensive end. You score 3 points in 5 minutes and 18 seconds of any part of the game, let alone the final 5:18 of the game, unless you have a massive lead, you're going to lose that game. So it's frustrating. And I understand your frustration, but I keep saying this, that as we look at these 2 teams in the finals, Jet, these are 2 good, not great teams, right? They're both flawed. So we're going to get this kind of up and down, up and down. The only consistent thing in this entire finals has been the play of Steph Curry, who seems to be getting better with every game. And he was just magical on Friday night to even this series up. But again, we're going to get this with 2 teams that are flawed. These are not the Durant, Steph Curry Warriors. These are not the LeBron, Wade, Bosh Heat, or the Kobe, Shaq Lakers, or certainly those great Lakers and Celtics teams back in the 80s, and certainly not the Jordan teams of the 90s. These are good teams, the 2 best teams in basketball, but they are certainly flawed, and we've seen a lot of those flaws in the first 4 games, and we'll see more of these flaws over the next 2 or 3 games.
I think that's part of why I'm frustrated, Sap, is, from a Celtics fan perspective, I'm looking at the Warriors and going, oh, this isn't the Warriors team from a couple of years ago. Like, you could beat these guys. This is on the table to win the 18th championship in the history of the Boston Celtics. And it's a lot of it's self-inflicted wounds. Listen, Steph Curry has been phenomenal, without a doubt. But, there's things that the Celtics can point to and say, man, we've really done this to ourselves. And I think that was the case in game 4, Sap. You lose the rebounding battle to a shorter team, a smaller team, 42-55. That cannot happen. That is just an absolute failure on the part of the Celtics from an effort standpoint, and the extra chance baskets are always going to kill you against Golden State. In game 3, the Celtics did a great job with the rebounding, and game 4 was the complete opposite. We've talked to death about the turnovers. We've talked about the free throw shooting. These are all things that the Celtics that are within their ability to fix. And when they don't do it, you're like, what the hell is wrong with this team? So, I'm frustrated, as are a lot of the Celtics fans, because these are a lot of self-inflicted wounds. There's only so much you can do about Steph Curry. If he's going to go bananas, he's going to go bananas. But even so, Sep, with him having a remarkable game, the Celtics could have still won this game were it not for the rebounding and the turnovers and the free throw shooting, and Jason Tatum not playing particularly well, and Jaylen Brown disappearing down the stretch a little bit. These are all things that are very, very frustrating as a Celtics fan. And you're going, why at this point at game 105-6 have they not been able to figure this stuff out yet?
You look at the rebounding issue on Friday night, like you said, 55-42 edge to the Warriors. That should never happen in this series. Andrew Wiggins had 16 rebounds. That's 5 more than his career high. He picked the right time to have his best rebounding night of his career. And in fact, after the game, Draymond Green and Steph Curry were kind of kidding him, going, your career high coming into this game was only 11. I mean, you're 6'8", you're athletic, you should be a better rebounder. Well, he was in game 4, and it was immense for the Warriors. Heck, Steph Curry had 10 rebounds. He's always been kind of a sneaky good rebounder, always in the right place at the right time. You go to the turnovers. When the Celtics have 14 or fewer turnovers in this postseason, they are 14-2, and they have 15 or more turnovers. They're 0-6. Well, they had 15 turnovers on Friday night, so that's an issue. And also the way that they don't close. You look at since game 6 of the Miami series, game 6 and 7, game 1, 3, and 4 of this series. So 5 games. I'm going to throw game 2 out because that was a blowout and the starters really didn't play in the fourth quarter. But game 6, 7 of the Miami series, games 1, 3, and 4 of this series, in the fourth quarter alone, Jaylen Brown is 7 of 16 from the floor. That's okay. Jason Tatum is 7 of 20. That's not very good. That's 35%. No. Marcus Smart is 7 of 22. That's at 32%. My bigger issue is, why is Marcus Smart taking more shots in the fourth quarter than either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum? That seems to be an issue now. Are Brown and Tatum shying away, or is Smart just trying to play hero ball? That's a big question.
Yeah, I think that especially with Brown, because I heard Coach Udoka say this, it was either today or yesterday, needs to be more assertive at the end of games. And so I think it's a little bit of both. I know that's straddling the fence, but I do think that Brown and Tatum are obviously your best scorers by a mile. Everybody knows that. And they need to do a better job demanding the ball at the end of games too. And I think Marcus Smart also, when it's close, needs to be more comfortable not trying to be the hero and being the distributor. So I think it's all those things, but I definitely think the fact that Coach Udoka specifically talked about Jaylen Brown trying to be assertive at the end of games and call for the ball and them running more plays for him, I think that leads me to believe that what the team is seeing internally is that Brown, Tatum need to be guys who are saying, give me the ball and ride me to the end of the game here, and I'll help deliver the victory. So we'll see if they're able to do that. At times we've seen them do that. It's just not consistently. But the bigger thing for me is the turnovers, as you mentioned, in the rebounding. The Celtics have every advantage rebounding in this series, Sap, in terms of height, strength, athleticism. The fact that it wasn't even close and competitive in game 4 was the biggest issue for me. So, and that seems so fixable. That's an effort thing. So I'm hoping that that's what we see tonight.
Because in game 3, they out-rebounded Golden State 57-41. So we've seen
it shouldn't swing like that between games. That's crazy.
Really, for either team. I mean, the Celtics should win the rebounding edge by 8 to 10 every night. They're just better. As you said, they're bigger, more athletic at most every position. I mean, if we're going to start, pairing them up, Marcus Smart's a bigger athlete than Steph Curry. Jaylen Brown, at this point in his career, is a better athlete than Klay Thompson, Jason Tatum. I don't know if he's a better athlete than Andrew Wiggins, but he's a better basketball player. And then we know Horford and Williams should be somewhat dominant. Although, again, Draymond Green had a sneaky, decent game in game 4, even though he was benched for a period in the fourth quarter. He still had 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and 4 steals, which is what Draymond Green does. He can't shoot to save his life, but he does these other things as well. And I look at Jaylen Brown, who through the first 3 games of the series looked like the MVP of the series. And now that it's 2-2, it certainly looks like Steph Curry is the front runner to be MVP. It seems like the Celtics ice out Jaylen Brown as much as anything. He comes out in the first quarter, he is on fire. And then it seems like they ignore him at some point in the second quarter and then into the second half. And then if you go to him in the fourth quarter and you're calling on him to come in and help close the game, it's as if he hasn't touched the ball for an hour and 20 minutes. I think that's an issue that maybe you spread this thing out a little bit more, that it's not my turn, your turn with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Let's get them both started in the first quarter and see if they can carry that through the other quarters in the game. I think that's certainly an issue. And then it goes back to your best player. Jason Tatum has not had a good series. He's shooting 34% from the floor in this series. He's shooting 45% from 3. His 3-point ball's been pretty good in this final, 45%. He's shooting 27% on 2s. That doesn't even seem possible. I mean, that's worse than Draymond Green. And he's turning
the ball over far, far too much.
He's very close to breaking a record for most turnovers in a postseason, which is currently held by LeBron James in 2018. He's 3 away from breaking that record. That's not a record you want to hold. Now, LeBron holds the record, but LeBron also has the ball in his hands more than anyone at any given time. He's
only 3 away. I mean, he's going to break that tonight, Sam.
He may break that by halftime. Let's hope not. But
right.
That's an issue that, he's not taking care of the basketball. And all we've heard through the postseason is about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's turning it over. Well, Jason Tatum has more turnovers, and I get it that Tatum will have the ball in his hands more. I don't see a lot of ball movement. I think Marcus Smart kind of alluded to that after the game. He and Derek White were together in the press conference talking about a lot of standing around. They've got to get their act in order on offense, where there's some cutting, there's some movement, some screens. It can't just be ISO, and it can't just be guys jacking up 3, because look, when their offense is humming, they're going to beat this Golden State team, because in the 2 wins, they had 120 and 116. So, they can do it. In the 2 losses, 97 and 88. So it really comes down to the Celtics' offensive efficiency. If they're clicking on all cylinders, they'll win this game, because it appears to me that Golden State's going to score in the 107, 108 range pretty much every night. They're consistent with that because Steph's unbelievable and everybody else kind of, helps out as much as they can. The Celtics are the bigger variable in this series. If they're on par on offense, they should be in good shape.
Yeah, Sap too, something that I noticed actually, Magic Johnson of all people pointed it out on Twitter. And usually he's not analytical on Twitter. He just literally states exactly what the box score is. But he's saying, the Celtics at the end of the game, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, we're trying to get in a 3-point shooting contest with the Warriors. And I think that they have this trend of, the Warriors are up by 3. We have to hit a 3. They just hit a big 3. We have to hit a big 3. You can't play like that. You have to still play within yourself. And if you're looking to match 3 for 3 with the Warriors, you're not going to beat them. So it wasn't a good mentality going down. And in the fourth quarter, Sep, their offense it seemed like they had no idea what they wanted to do.
Scored 3 points in the final 5 minutes and 18 seconds. 6 points in the final 7.5 minutes. I mean, that's not something that is going to help you win a game like that. Again, unless you have a massive lead, and they never had a huge lead. They had led by 5 or 6 at some point. Then they were up by 4 with 5:18 left, and they seemed to be in pretty good shape at that point. And really, as great as Curry was on Friday, he only had 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. Then he started, hitting his free throws to ice the game. But it was other guys contributing in the fourth quarter. So you had opportunities there. Just your offense went to sleep. And you nailed it right there, Jet. And the great Magic Johnson, for once, put something on Twitter that was a little bit more analytical than just statistical, saying that you're trying to get into the 3-point contest with Golden State. You're not going to win that. And the Celtics were never that far down. Like, it was 5 with a minute and a half left. Like, you don't have to get 3s at that point. Get a quick 2, put pressure on the ball, get a big defensive stop. And even when they would get a big defensive stop, though, what would happen? Offensive rebounds, right? They got killed on the boards in the fourth quarter. Andrew Wiggins had 6 rebounds in the fourth quarter. Robert Williams III had 0 in the fourth quarter. And I get that Williams is fighting through this knee, but I'll guarantee you pretty much every guy on the court on Friday night is dealing with something, whether it's Steph Curry's ankle or Tatum's shoulder or, at this point, Draymond Green's head. But someone's dealing with something, and you're going to have to plow through that at this point. Well, look, Klay Thompson looks like he's aging in dog years. He can barely move, but he was able to hit some big shots in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely, Sep. So I think the Celtics, their mentality needs to change. You can't just look to hit that big shot that swings momentum all at once. It's like you said, Golden State didn't have any sort of big lead, and the Celtics were acting like we need to get this back all in one trip. And that ultimately sank them at the end of the game. They could not save themselves with any sort of basket, and yet they kept attempting the same exact 3-pointer every single possession until the game was finally over. So it was incredibly frustrating to watch the end of that game. With the game tonight, Sap, I think it seems to be common wisdom with Game 5s, and certainly with this series, that you would think whoever wins this game and gets 2 cracks to try to knock off the other team is going to win the series. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. The reason being, neither of these teams has lost back-to-back games in the postseason. Now, again, it becomes more difficult. The opponent that you're playing here in the finals, in theory, is better. This is the best opponent the Celtics have faced, and this is the best opponent Golden State has faced. So it's difficult to close this thing out. So especially if the Celtics can win tonight, then they've got an opportunity on Thursday at home to wrap it up. But look, they had an opportunity on Friday to take commanding 3-1 lead in the series. They blew it. And they had an opportunity to finish off Miami in Game 6 here a couple of weeks ago, and they blew it. Needed to go to Miami to win Game 7. I can't figure these teams out. Again, I think it just goes back to they're just not quite good enough to dominate, but they're good enough to be competitive in every game. And there's some blowouts in here. I mean, I again, get into semantics, but, they're just not good enough to just roll the balls out on the court and say, we're just better than you. These are pretty evenly matched teams. I think the Celtics are slightly better, a little better defensively, maybe a little deeper, a little more athletic. Golden State does have home court advantage. They do have the championship DNA and experience, and they have the best player in this series. I thought going into this series that Jason Tatum was trending in the right direction to be the best player in the series, but we've seen Steph Curry, an all-time great, is playing at a very high level, so you can make the case that he's the best player in the series. But heck, the Celtics beat Milwaukee when Giannis was the best player in that series. For 4 out of 7 games, Jimmy Butler was much better than Jason Tatum, and they were able to beat Miami. I get that Jason Tatum outplayed Kevin Durant in the first round, but Durant's still an all-time great. So you don't necessarily have to have the best player in the series to win, because the Celtics can beat Golden State if they just do what they're supposed to do, as great as Curry is. And they've got to make him uncomfortable, which is very difficult to do. You see, he's impossible to defend. But from everything I've gathered and just listening to the experts, the one way to make Steph Curry uncomfortable, I think there's probably two ways. First of all, you've got to make him play defense. If it means if he's covering Marcus Smart's going to have to get in the paint and use his big butt, his size and strength against Steph Curry to punish him down when Steph's on defense, right? That's one way to do it. The other thing, you can't cover him. He moves too well without the ball. He has the quickest release in basketball. Good luck with that. From what I understand, from what people have said, and again, I'll steal these thoughts from people. I won't even have to, name them. He's comfortable if the defender is in front of him. He's comfortable if the defender is behind him. He is not comfortable when the defender is to his side. I have no idea how you execute that, right? Because if you're at his side, he's stepping back to hit a longer three, or he's stepping forward and he's hitting a floater. So figure that out. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. That's what Ime Udoka and the coaching staff is there for. But that's what everyone says is he's only uncomfortable when someone's on his side, not in front of him or not behind him. We've heard the same thing about James Harden as well. That players sometimes get kind of weirded out when someone's beside them. It's almost like when you go shopping. I don't know if you go to supermarkets, you're probably a bit above
Occasionally.
that. Okay, I go to the supermarket and have to fight through the aisles. I, too, get more weirded out when someone's to my side. Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to Steph Curry, but work with me here. When someone's behind me or in front of me, I'm comfortable. When someone's to my side, I get uncomfortable. Maybe that's the way to go after Steph Curry, like just have someone by his side the entire game. I don't know. I have no idea how to stop the guy. He's incredible.
No, I mean, I've always thought, because, I've been looking forward to trying to play the Warriors in the finals for a long time, because the Celtics have played them well and, they come close. The way I thought about it, obviously, is like you said, you play you make him play defense, and you got to be super physical with him. If he's gonna draw a foul, which he does, frequently, he does really well. You got to make that foul count. I've always thought on one of his first 3-point attempts, you live with him hitting it and getting a 4-point play, but you knock his ass down to the ground. You blow him up on screens on the other side of it. If you get called for foul, you get called for foul, but you got to beat him up. You got to make him tired at the end of the game. You got to make him sore. That's the only thing you can really do. So I'd like the Celtics to see the Celtics be more physical with him and with the Warriors in general. They obviously take better care of the ball, more effort on the board, Sep. Again, rebounding is really about effort. The Celtics have the strength advantage, the size advantage, the athleticism advantage. They should not lose the rebounding battle, period. They should be ashamed of themselves for what the margin was in that last game. So, that's what I'm looking for tonight, is for them, for a better effort game and for a smarter game from them. I'm not talking about Marcus Smart. I'm talking about the whole team collectively, a smarter game where they know what they want to do and they play with purpose, and they're capable of winning on the road. They're capable of winning on the road in San Francisco. We saw them do it earlier in the series. So I don't think that it's impossible, but it's just, this team is maddening, Sap. They're maddening to watch.
Yeah, at times they are. Because their ceiling is so high. I mean, when they go out and they, blow doors against Milwaukee in game 2 or game 7, or winning a big game 6 at Milwaukee, facing elimination, and some of the wins they had against Miami, where they were so impressive. They looked great in game 1, especially in the fourth quarter of this series. In game 3, it was an outstanding performance, pretty much wire to wire. And then they go through these pockets where they'll go 5 minutes and 18 seconds where they score one basket and they look like they've never played together. So that's something that they have to kind of fight their way through on this. And, I look at this series too with the home court advantage. Doesn't seem to be as pronounced as in the past. And again, the Warriors are playing at the Chase Center now, which is different than Oracle. Oracle was kind of an old barn, right, where the fans were right on top of you, and you had those,
and they weren't priced out yet. Yeah.
And they weren't priced out yet. The Garden now is priced out to the point where I don't know if you have the real fans in the building, or you don't have as many as, say, you would in a regular season game or an early playoff game. So now you've got a lot of people that are paying $1,200, $1,500, $1,800 for a ticket. They're not as crazy as the real fans. So the home court advantage isn't as big a deal as it would be in some other series. And then you have a player like Steph Curry who's comfortable lighting it up, at home, on the road, neutral court, whatever it may be. I mean, the thing about Curry, to be physical with him, is, I agree with you 100%, Jet. He's tough to catch, though. I mean, the more I watch him in this series, it's almost like Barry Sanders, like cross-sport reference. Barry Sanders was impossible to tackle or get a really good, clean shot on him because you really never had that opportunity.
Right.
Curry moves so well with the ball, without the ball. I just look at him and go, this guy would have been a phenomenal soccer player or a great tennis player. We know he's a good golfer. He would have been phenomenal.
Then you do it on defense, Sep, right? You got to.
Well, that's where I think you do it. Yeah. I mean, again, if he's on Smart's very good in the low post. In fact, I like Marcus Smart in the low post more than I do out beyond three. And again, they don't really have rim protectors, Golden State. It's not like he's going to go in there and face, Giannis or Durant or someone who could swat the ball back. I mean, Kevon Looney's a nice player, but he's not the most athletic big. And Draymond Green is in multiple places at multiple times. So get down low. Marcus Smart's 6'4", probably 230. He's probably 40 pounds heavier than Steph Curry. Punish him down there so that, he takes some energy away from Curry. Because on the other end, he's just nearly impossible to get a hold of because his ball handling skills are second only Kyrie Irving. And then his ability to get shots off. I've never seen anything quite like it. He's the greatest shooter we've ever seen, but his ability to just get rid of the ball so quickly, it's scary. I'm in awe of the guy doing what he does. And right now he's playing at that very high level. And I think he kind of smells it too, right? Because he's heard that he's never been a finals MVP, that the last two championships were more about Durant than Steph Curry, right, and that his first title was against LeBron and Matthew Dellavedova because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love were out. So I think he's heard all this, and he's playing for his legacy at this point, like where we're going to rank Steph after this series. So he really smells it, but you've got to punish him on the defensive end because I think that's one way to maybe sap some energy out of him.
So, Sap, we got now a best of three. And so my question to you, before we wrap this up, is who's going to win this series? Who's going to win this game tonight?
I said Celtics in 6, so I'll just stick with it. It's mathematically still possible. It's going to be tough to pull off because you get a win tonight, which I think they can do. But can they live with good fortune and come back Thursday night and wrap this thing up? I mean, the way we've seen them is great performance followed by a dud. I mean, that's been the way it's been pretty much for the previous two series. But I think that, if they can steal this one tonight, and I get the impression that if they win, they may win in not necessarily blowout fashion, but in comfortable fashion because they don't win close games, come back here to try wrap it up Thursday. But I mean, I wouldn't have a ton of confidence in that either because we saw they weren't able to seal the deal against Miami in Game 6. They weren't even able to seal the deal against Milwaukee in Game 5. They blew that one, but then they were able to win Game 6 in Milwaukee, Game 7 back at the Garden. I think they can still win this thing. I'm going to stick with my original prediction of Celtics in 6. Just a matter of getting efficient shooting from Jason Tatum. You can't get 23 points on 23 shots. That's not good enough.
Absolutely. That's unacceptable for your star player. For me, Sap, I said Warriors in 6 at the start, so I don't feel good about it. And it's the first series I picked against the Celtics, but after a golden opportunities, again, went through their fingers. I think they're playing a different type of team than Miami or Milwaukee. And so Golden State has a huge opportunity tonight on their home court. I have struggled to see them losing that game. I think that it certainly could very likely go 7. And I don't know that Boston, if they lose tonight, will wilt on their own home court and let Golden State celebrate a championship in Boston. That does seem hard to believe, but that was my pick at the beginning of the series. So, I mean, both of our picks are still in play. So why not stick with my Warriors in 6? Unfortunately, I don't want that to happen. And I'm hoping the Celtics are able to find their best basketball in these next 2 games because they're going to need it. So we'll see what happens, Sap, but we'll be back tomorrow to recap whatever does in fact happen and look forward after that. And so stay tuned and enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully I can enjoy the game without too much stress, Sap. And we are the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Make sure you check out the show wherever podcasts are found and check out our social media at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. And thank you to Full Press Coverage for presenting us. And we will be back tomorrow with a new edition of the pod. See you, everybody.